Considering all the factors that you can share information through in today's world, it's news organizations, it's social media, you can share your voice and opinion about a company, it became a problem for organizations to be so susceptible at being at high risk for a crisis. A crisis can affect their image, their reputation, and this is something they have to pay a lot of care about. We see all kinds of social justice activities happening, from protesting against a company either in the classical way on the street, either the newer phenomenon of cancellation on social media. The bigger a company is, the harder it can fall. This is the reason why companies need to be prepared. In corporate communications world, we say that they must have a crisis communication plan ready. So this means that if there is a crisis about their company, they know exactly what to do in the shortest time. In this video, we will discuss the entire concept and the definition, of course, of what a crisis is and how crisis management should be done. There are 5 steps and we will go through all of them. We will see possible crisis scenarios that companies need to be prepared for, and also how they can respond to those scenarios effectively. And also we will see effective communication principles in case there is an issue or a crisis. In the previous videos, we discussed about how issues can transform into a crisis. There is a video right here where we've explained how an issue becomes a crisis for a company, and also there is another video right here where we discussed how to manage an issue and how to manage a crisis. You can also find all these videos in the description down below. This is an at-length video and we go in depth with the information for crisis management. Consider that you can use the timeline of YouTube in order to skip through the chapters, or maybe you can help yourself with the videos in the description to see exactly the part that interests you the most. We will begin with to understand why companies need to be prepared for crisis management. Well, in today's world, everybody and individuals like you and me and also other companies have access to information. Having access to information means that we know what is happening in our environment, and we know that maybe some companies might have bad practices for the environment, for the communities, or for their stakeholders in general. We also have the power through YouTube, social media, whatever social media is, Twitter, doesn't matter, or through news, through blogs, through newspapers, we can share and voice our opinion. So it begins to have a two-way relationship between the company and the stakeholders, where it's not just the company communicating to the stakeholders, but this time stakeholders can communicate back to the company, and sometimes the stakeholders can group themselves and have a protest against the company if they don't like the actions that are undertaken by it. As an example, because of our access to information and the possibility to share information, we know about the bad practices of oil companies. We know about the pollution of different industries, such as power plants or manufacturing. We know about deforestation. We have a lot of information. Not just that we have information, but being able to share it and to group ourselves together, we represent quite a big risk for many companies with bad practices. Therefore, it is important for companies to be prepared in case such an issue or such a crisis evolves towards their company, and they can do that by having at hand a communication plan created specifically for crisis scenarios. Of course, that being prepared to communicate about it is just half the battle. Another half would be preventing it or having good practices so stakeholders wouldn't have something against you. But to begin with, let's see how we define a crisis. Broadly speaking, a crisis is an event or issue that requires decisive and immediate action from the company. The necessity of immediate action might be triggered by the mounting public pressure, intense media action, or because of direct dangers of any kind. Crises may involve accidents or natural disasters, but may also stem from actions and failures within the organization. Let's now see a bit of crisis management, what companies can actually do. Obviously, the first step is anticipation. Anticipation involves the capacity of organizations to predict and prevent potential crisis scenarios from arising before they have occurred. The second step is resilience, which is the ability to cope with a crisis once it occurs and confronts the organization. A resilient performance is in fact one where members of the organization improvise and act mindfully in real time to deal with the crisis and minimize its impact. Of course, that the bigger an organization is, the more possible crisis scenarios there are, and of course that a company can never be prepared for all these scenarios. This is why Mitroff and Pearson, two very famous communicators, have 5 stages or 5 levels that companies should be prepared with, and they call them the 5 contingency plans. Stage 1 involves minimal planning around a few contingency plans drawn up for an emergency response. These may involve a limited setup plan, such as evacuating a building during fire or giving first aid to employees who suffer injury or sudden illness. Second stage involves more extensive planning but is limited to natural disasters and potential human errors. Planning at this stage involves measures for damage containment and business recovery. Stage 3 involves extensive contingency plans, which include crisis procedures for probable natural disasters and human errors, and the training of personnel so that employees can implement these crisis procedures. Stage 4 is similar to Stage 3 but involves an organization-wide consultation of potential crises and their impact on stakeholders. The scope of Stage 4 is wider than typical natural disasters and human errors and includes products, includes defects, tampering, and social issues regarding the company's supply chain operations and contributions towards society. And finally, Stage 5 involves all of the previous stages but also incorporates environmental scanning and early warning systems to identify crises as early as possible. About environmental scanning, we also talked in this video right here. It is part of the video of issues and crisis management. Of course, that being prepared for any type of issue or any type of a crisis a company can face, it's not really possible, but of course it's very efficient and very important to be prepared for the most important dangers, and that is because a crisis can affect the income of the company, the image and the reputation of the company. If you want to learn more about the image and reputation of a company and why they are so important, click on this video right here or check the links down in the description, because it's not as important the income as the image and as the reputation of the company, and the organizations want to protect it at all costs. Of course that for a company the most 3 important elements that it wants to protect are its image, its reputation, and its income. Of course that there is companies that are for a company there are 3 important aspects it wants to protect: its image, its reputation, and its income. However, depending on the type of crisis it might face, for example, if we talk about terrorism with faux pas, with accidents or with transgressions, companies can face real issues. They can face natural disasters, they can face acts of terrorism, there can actually be real victims, not just the damage for the image or for the income of the company. And in this type of scenarios, companies need to know how to communicate effectively, because they will need to share information about what is happening, what it has done to remediate the damages, and we will talk about this right now, about the 12 communication strategies and about the 4 types of different crisis scenarios. When we talk about communicating, and in this case communicating about something important such as response in type of a crisis scenario, you need to know about framing. I've created a video right here about framing, how companies and how news organizations have framing and how they utilize it in order to make the message sound in a certain way that of course benefits them. And of course that depending on the answer the company comes out with, they will be judged, and maybe they can get benefits from it to its reputation and image, or the image and reputation can be seriously damaged if the response is not according to the gravity of the issue. And of course that when a company has to deal with a crisis, it needs to know how much there is to blame on the company, because this is actually important for companies. It's not the gravity of the crisis for per se, it's actually how people believe that company influenced the crisis. If the stakeholders consider that the company is a big contributor, then it has a huge responsibility to come out with an answer. If people believe the company is not at fault for the crisis, well, you know, sometimes you do bad things and you're not cuffed, and sometimes you do good things and people believe that you do bad things. However, let's see the 4 possible crisis scenarios that a company might face. In order to do this, we will use the crisis type matrix, where crisis expert Timothy Coombs defines 4 types of crisis based on 2 dimensions. It can be either internal or external, and it can be intentional or unintentional. The internal-external dimensions refer to whether a crisis resulted from something done by the organization itself, like actions of employees or decisions of manager, or if it was caused by a person or a group outside the organization. The intentional-unintentional dimension refers to the controllability of the crisis. Intentional means that the crisis event was committed deliberately by some actor, and unintentional means that the crisis event was not committed deliberately by some actor. The 4 types of crisis that a company might face are: a faux pas is an unintentional action which is transformed into a crisis by an external factor. It often begins as an issue between an organization and a particular external factor who challenges the appropriateness of the organization's actions. When the organization does not engage in debate with the actor, or when the public opinion and stakeholder expectations move against the company, issues might turn into a crisis. Therefore, social responsibility tends to be the focal point of most faux pas. Accidents are unintentional and happening during the course of normal organizational operations. For example, we talk about product defects, employee injuries, and natural disasters are all examples of accidents. The unintentional and general random nature of accidents often leads to attributions of minimal organizational responsibility unless it was directly responsible for the actions. Therefore, accidents can be divided into acts of nature, for example, hurricanes, epidemics, earthquakes, and human-induced errors, such as industrial accidents. Transgressions are unintentional acts taken by an organization that knowingly place stakeholders or publics at risk or harm. Knowingly selling defective or dangerous products without safety information from authorities, violating laws, or creative bookkeeping are examples of transgressions. And finally, terrorism refers to intentional acts taken by external agents. These intentional actions are designed to harm the organization directly or indirectly. Examples are product tampering, hostage-taking, sabotage, and workplace violence. This is why the crisis expert categorized the crisis scenarios into 4 categories, and depending if it was caused by somebody internal or external to the company, and if it was caused intentional or unintentional. The most important principle for deciding the best communication strategy in case of a response is deciding and understanding how culpable the organization is, not in reality, but in the perception of stakeholders. So, in other words, how blamable do stakeholders believe that the company is for what happened? In this table, we can observe 12 different communication strategies that may be approached and used depending on the response needed. We will first of all discuss the main categories of strategies. When the perception of organizational responsibility is low or weak, the organization may use a distance strategy to further weaken the linkage between the crisis and the organization. Alternatively, the company might follow an association strategy to remind stakeholders and the general public of the past good behavior that may offset the negative that the crisis brings to the organization. When the perception of organizational responsibility for a faux pas is high or strong, an organization will have to follow an acceptance or accommodation strategy. Besides apologizing for the crisis and openly accepting the blame, this may also include remediation, so giving compensation to victim, or rectification, which is taking corrective action to prevent the crisis from happening again. The natural accidents are unintentional and outwit the control of organizations. Such accidents can therefore be easily responded to with a distancing strategy which serves to reinforce the organization's lack of direct responsibility for the crisis. In case of human error accidents, they are more difficult to justify and will require an apology from the organization and an admission that will take action to prevent recurrence from the crisis in the future. Transgressions are intentional actions taken by organizations which make organizations directly responsible for their impact. Organizations need to follow an acceptance strategy where they admit their response but work to atone for crisis in some fashion. Finally, terrorist attacks are directed at the organization by external agents and are often there is very little directional responsibility or culpability for the organization. One may therefore adopt a suffering strategy which portrays the organization as an unfair victim of some malicious outdoor action. As you can see in the image, there are multiple strategies under these categories, and depending on the type of crisis you deal with, you decide the best category of strategy you can use, and then you decide the specific action and the specific strategy. Another very important aspect once a crisis has been identified or once a crisis is happening is to control the information. As a company, you want to control the information that the stakeholders know and also to control the information that you give to the stakeholders in case of a crisis. These effective criteria of controlling the information can be crucial for the success of managing a crisis. This was everything for this video of crisis communication. I hope it helped you to understand what a crisis is. I hope it helped you understand that there are four main important scenarios of crisis that may happen, and there are 12 strategies to come out with a response for a company. If you want to learn more about issues and crisis management, I recommend you this video right here, and down in the description below there will be multiple links and videos about this topic that can help you understand it better. Before checking other videos on my channel about corporate communication or marketing, I want to let you know that if you are an entrepreneur or a manager, in the links down below there is something that will help you a lot. I've created a communication plan, a marketing plan, and overall a business strategy by the book, exactly how the book says you should react and how you should build a real business plan, and you can download it in the links down below. There is a manual that will give you all the information you need to know about marketing, about communication, and about business overall to be able to come out with a business plan, and there is a notebook with step-by-step information to be followed in order to create all the business plans that you need for the company. It is really important that you should have a business plan when you have a new company or when you manage one. Therefore, check the links down in the description because it will help you greatly. Remember that you can also help me in the classical ways of liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and also leave a comment down below in the comment section. It helps me a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you really want to support my channel, you can activate the membership options. It only costs $2, or you can buy me a coffee in the link right here. Because I drink quite a lot of coffee in creating these videos, I make the scenario with all the information, I film the videos, I edit the videos so you can watch them for free. All these thank you options are available for you, and I will see you at the next episode.